Right then, here we are, round one of the 2026 Thursday Night League. So I'm going to keep this one nice and short because there's really not too much to talk about here. So we qualified in pole position overall in the wet again. I've got to be honest, I'm getting so bored of the wet now. I like it, I enjoy it, and to be fair, this was probably the most enjoyable wet conditions you can race in, where the track's wet but it's not raining, so there's no like you have to wipe your visor every 5 minutes, and it's just generally pretty decent fun. But yeah, like, I can't remember the last time I've driven in the full dry for any longer than about 10 minutes, but probably a good 3 or 4 months. So I am craving some dry track time now. But yeah, this was essentially a lights to flag victory. I knew I had a fair bit more pace than the guys in my race, so it was just a case of trying to just finish the race. I'm kind of just cruising around. In my head, I'm just like, come on Ash, let's get some fast laps in, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I need to start learning from these mistakes I've made in the past, which has cost me the championship, this championship last year. So we took what we learned, and it was just a case of just build a gap, nice and controlled, don't overstep the mark, and avoid track limits at all costs and any potential thing that race direction could penalise me for, and just basically just bring it home. So I'm not going to bore you too much now. One thing I would say is actually Daytona did paint these curbs, the red and white curbs, for the Race of Champions event, and at the Race of Champions event they were so slippy. Like the turn 10 there, which is the hairpin that we just went around, usually you can rail it really fast around, or just sort of like just using that curb as a berm, and at the Race of Champions, every time you touched it, it was literally just like sheet ice. But I don't know if there was some sort of coating on the paint, or maybe it's just got some more rubber on it now, I don't know. But luckily for us today, there was actually plenty of grip there, so you could do like your normal line of using that as a nice little guide around it. Now, the turn we just went around there, turn 5, was so slippy today, and that was definitely my fault, because in practice I spun there twice and went basically through the barrier, and there was a big puddle of muddy water, which annoyingly I basically brought back onto the racing line, so I was having to be very cautious on the brakes going into that corner, because I didn't want to throw it back into the scenery. But there's really not too much to talk about here, so I'm not going to waste my time or waste yours. So yeah, essentially what this is a lights to flag victory in the heavyweight class. You'll see in a bit, there's a couple of lightweights we catch up and lap and whatnot, which is probably the most exciting part of the race, really. And yeah, other than that, I will jump back in a bit later on. So we are on the final lap. We are coming into the final few corners of the race. So pretty uneventful race really there, which is just like what we want. Just kicking the season off just how we wanted, with the win and the fastest lap. So we got maximum points today, and that's round 1 of the championship. So it's a couple of weeks time, and it is round 2.